What's up, everybody? We are back on the couch. Now, I know it has been a while, y'all. It has. Let's just say life took over. You know, there were many things my kid graduating, my birthday, the 4th of July, all these things. And then just going through your own personal struggles. You know how life goes. But we are never going fully away, just a little mini break and we are back in business now on the couch because I got some things to talk about. I got some content to put out there for y'all. So just continue to listen and tune in, and you best believe the couch is here to stay. So, welcome back to the Parker's Couch. If this is your first time here, my name is Cameron Parker. I usually am on the podcast with my brother Carlin Parker and our oldest brother Carl Parker, and I do some things solo. This is going to be one of my solo things that's going to be both on our YouTube page, The Parker's Couch, and also on our podcasting platforms, wherever you listen to your podcast from. Now, I started off when was that? It was a few weeks ago in June talking about Project 2025. And I left y'all completely hanging. I did the first two principles that I covered, and I was going to cover the next two of their four parts that they have there and their four pillar there with their playbook. And then I kind of fell off. But I am back because you need to hear this in the entirety. So make sure that you go back and listen to the episodes dealing with Project 2025. The first principle was around restoring the family to America's center life and protecting our children. And the second episode I did was about dismantling the administrative state and returning self governance to the people. So they say. Definitely go back and listen to those so you get an understanding of what's in Project 2025. Now, Project 2025 has been getting so much buzz lately. Now, on the couch, we were ahead of the curve, right? If you were listening, you know we were talking about this because it's not new. But praise be to the BET Awards and to Raji P. Henson because her announcement during the awards, whenever she told people to go and look up Project 2025 and what they're trying to do.
Show out for when it's time to vote, because it's not just about the presidential election, you guys. It's time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
My God, my God, that woke people up. I mean, we can say what we want about celebrities, and some things are fair game to do. But this is an example of the power and how it can be used to do the right thing because she pointed people in the right direction to go and look this up and to start researching. And then everybody's calling in. It's on all the shows. It's on every talk. It's article after article. Now you can't go anywhere without Project 2025 being heard of. It was so much that Donald Trump even had to come out with his useless tweet to separate himself with the idea that he has nothing to do with it. He doesn't know anything about it. He is like, I agree. He doesn't know anything about it, but yet he agrees with some things, but not with everything. And he wishes them luck. This man talks out of both sides of his mouth, out of three sides, four sides, five sides of his large ass mouth so many times. Like, you can't believe a word this man says. And I know everybody's up in arms over Biden. We all have our concerns. We all have this and that. But there is a bigger picture out here. And Project 2025 is one of those big pictures. And just so you know, all the people working on this too, the majority, about 50 plus of those people are connected to Donald J. Trump. They either worked in this administration, in some kind of capacity, or they're connected to him. He had them in charge of so many various different aspects of his administration. So don't believe him at all whenever he says he has no idea what Project 2025 is all about. But you know what, family? We are going to continue on, and we're going to pick back up with number 3 right here on the list of things that Project 2025 wanted to do away with or change or amend. Now, if you're watching on the YouTube page, The Parker's Couch, you can follow along as I share the screen up here, and you'll be able to read along, possibly with what I'm sharing. If you're just listening on the podcast, which is totally fine too, make sure that you just listen up, pay attention, go to project2025.org to do your own research too as well. As I said before, that this is a 920 plus page document. And I'm not covering the whole thing on the podcast. I don't know. I might dig into it more and do some more things coming up to the election, because I think it is just so uber important. And we need to stay on their necks. And people need to be reminded, no matter how small my outreach is, what little I can do, I am here for to do, because democracy is at stake, and that takes priority. My life, your life, our rights, my rights, all these things are super important. And we got to make sure we stop those who are trying to take things away. So it is very important. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube page. Then look forward to content that's going to be coming out. We don't only talk politics, we talk a lot of sports, we talk a lot of TV. I definitely have some TV things coming up for you that I want to get into and stuff on the YouTube page. And my brothers and I should be returning to our podcast very shortly. We've all been quite busy, but we will be back. And thank y'all for listening, still downloading episodes, while we've been on this little hiatus. All right, promise number 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. So here we go. The United States belongs to we the people. All government authority derives from the consent of the people, and our nation's success derives from the character of its people. The American people's right to rule ourselves is the verse of our duty. We cannot outsource to others our obligation to ensure the condition that allows our families, local communities, churches, and synagogues and neighborhoods to thrive. The buck stops with each of us. So each of us must have the freedom to pursue the good for ourselves and those entrusted to our care. To most Americans, this is common sense. But in Washington, D.C., ooh, the boogeyman, Washington, D.C., and other centers of leftist power, like the media and the academy, the statement of basic civics is branded hate speech. I don't know why conservatives think they have the full authority over American civics. Like, it's ridiculous. But anyway, progressive elites speak in lofty terms of openness, progress, expertise, cooperation, and globalization. But too often, these terms are just rhetorical. Trojan horse conceal or rhetorical Trojan horses concealing their true intention, stripping we the people of our constitutional authority over our country's future. Meanwhile, that's all you see coming from the right is stripping of our country's future. Just look at the Supreme Court, y'all. America's corporate and political elites do not believe in the ideals to which our nation is dedicated: self-governance, the rule of law, and ordered liberty. They certainly do not trust the American people, and they disdain the Constitution's restrictions on their ambitions. Instead, they believe in a kind of 21st century Wilsonian order in which the enlightened, highly educated, managerial elite runs things rather than the humble, patriotic, working families who make up the majority of what the elites contemptuously called flyover country. This is hilarious to me. This picture of the left and progressive being full of nothing but elites and, you know, the rich and stuff. And while everybody on the right is these humble, hardworking, patriotic people. Y'all gonna keep falling for this scam that elites only exist on the left? Really? When you have an elite at the head of your party on the right running for president, and he's convincing y'all that he's one of you, that he's for the common people. When I mean, you can look at all of government as far as if you want to say like elite and be that is no separate status here. If you just look in general, the left and the right is full of all types of American people. No one has this hold. The Republicans have been really good of, and I think it's because of Hollywood. And since Hollywood is so visible to our eyes, and a lot of Hollywood is left, it's this idea that everyone who is rich or everyone who's in the public eye is leftist, when there are many, 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 many elites on the right. You best believe. Because how the hell do they finance all this stuff? How? Okay. Anyway, this Wilsonian hubris has spread like a cancer through many of America's largest corporations, its public institutions, and its popular culture. Those who run our so called American corporations have bent to the will of the woke agenda. Here we go, buzzword woke, and care more for their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers. Today, nearly every top tier US university president or Wall Street hedge fund manager has more in common with a socialist European head of state than with the parents of a high school football game in Waco, Texas. I just love the way they keep trying to picture this idea of left versus right. Everybody on this right are just these honest, just hardworking, regular people. While everybody on the left is just there with their agendas, it's overtaking us. So whiny, so whiny. But anyway, it throws me for a loop. But you can see how they're still even coming for education in this, and they always paint education as being a leftist thing, as if people on the right cannot be educated or are not within education themselves. It's very strange to me. Many elites' entire identity, it seems, is wrapped up in their sense of superiority over those people. But under our Constitution, they are the mere equals of the workers who shower after work instead of before. Who shower after work instead of before. Yeah, because everybody who showers before work, they're obviously leftists, they're white collar, they're elite, they have all the money. While we hardworking farmers and everything like that, all of us are conservatives and we shower after work, because we're doing the hard work of the land and all these things. Meanwhile, your head that's running for president probably never mowed a lawn in his life, probably never raked a piece of grass, leaves, never. Name me something physical outdoors that he's done. Okay. But we'll continue to paint this picture with y'all. We'll fall for this optical illusion that y'all try to continue to do on this right side. This is as it should and must be. This is as it should and must be. Intellectual sophistication, advanced degrees, financial success, and all other markers of elite status have no bearing on a person's knowledge of the one thing most necessary for governance, what it means to live well. That knowledge is available to each of us, no matter how humble our backgrounds or how unpretentious our attainments. It is open to us to read in the book of human nature, to which we are all offered the key just by merit of our shared humanity. One of the great premises of American political life is that everyone who can read in that book must have a voice in deciding the course and fate of our republic. Progressive policymakers and pundits in America either fail to understand this premise or intentionally reject it. They enthusiastically support um, supranational organizations like the United Nations and European Union, which are run and staffed almost entirely by people who share their values and mostly insulated from the influence of national elections. They can come for the United Nations, for NATO, for all this stuff. That's why they're eager for America to sign international treaties on everything from pharmaceutical patient patents to climate change to the rights of the child. And while those treaties invariably endorse policies that could never pass through the US Congress, like the progressive Woodrow Wilson a century ago, the woke left today seeks a world bound by global treaties they write, in which they exercise, I know they're not saying dictatorial powers. There's only one dictator somebody trying to be a dictator over all nations without being subject to democratic accountability. Yeah, whatever. That's why today's progressive left so cavalierly supports open borders. Here we go, this open borders talk. Despite the lawless humanitarian crisis their policy created along American southern border, they seek to purge the very concept of the nation state from the American ethos. No matter how much crime increases or resources drop from schools and hospitals or wages decrease for the working class, open borders activism is a classic example of what the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I don't know. I don't know German, y'all. Called cheap grace, publicly promoting one's virtue without risking any personal inconvenience. Indeed, the only direct impact of open borders on pro open borders elites is that the constant flow of illegal immigration suppresses the wages of their housekeepers, landscapers, and busboys. Cheap grace aptly describes the left's love affair with environmental extremism. Yeah, they want y'all. They love some environmental racism now. They want all you Negroes and other minorities and everything to stay in them terrible environmental areas. Don't even yes, environmental extremism. Those who suffer most from the policies environmentalism will have us enact are the aged, poor, and vulnerable. It is not a political cause, but a pseudo religion meant to baptize liberals' ruthless pursuit of absolute power in the holy water of environmental virtue. Y'all are doing way too much. This is hilarious. It's very poetic. You better get in all that theology, all those religious terms in here to prove your point here. But this is quite a hoot. At its very heart, environmental extremism is decidedly anti-human. Stewardship and conservation are supplanted by population control and economic regression. Environmental ideologues would ban the fuels that run almost all of the world's cars, planes, factories, farms, and electricity grids, abandoning confidence in human resilience and creativity in responding to the challenges of the future would raise impediments to the most meaningful human activities. They would stand human affairs on their head regarding human activity itself as fundamentally a threat to be sacrificed to the god of nature. The same goals are the heart of elite support for economic globalization. For 30 years, America's political, economic, and cultural leaders embraced and enriched communist China and its genocidal communist party while hollowing out America's industrial base. What may have started out with good intentions has now been made clear. Unfettered trade with China has been a catastrophe. It has made a handful of American corporations enormously profitable while twisting their business incentives away from the American people's needs. For a generation, politicians of both parties promised that engagement with Beijing would grow our economy while injecting American values into China. The opposite has happened. American factories have closed, jobs have been outsourced, our manufacturing economy has been financialized. And all along, the corporations profiting failed to export our values of human rights and freedom. Rather, they imported China's anti American values into their C suites. Say the reverse has happened. I, you know what? I'm going to say something because this ethnocentric view of America and this whole closed mindedness of like proud to be an American and da 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 da. We got the Olympics coming up and all this stuff. I'm gonna be. That's the only time I get like really patriotic. It's like during the Olympics. I'm cheering for it. All the Americans. Yes, yes, definitely beat all those countries. With some of y'all wanting to be cheering for Americans this year because of politics. Definitely with sports and stuff. We'll get into some of that on the podcast for sure. But this idea that we know better than the rest of the world, we're going to tell everybody how to run their countries. We're going to tell all the people in the world what to do because we hold the supreme of human values and dignity and human rights. What the hell? Look at this country now. Do you think we hold the standard on human rights and value and respect, integrity, honesty, like, and we think these are only American? Like other people in the world don't hold to these same virtues, and some, dare I say, do it better than us? I don't know. It just blows my mind. Just this narrow view, this tunnel vision of America's great, 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 great. Everything's just got to be great, great, great. You better say it's great. You better not criticize. You better, you know what? It's ridiculous because we have a lot of work to do. And while I will say that I am, I am respectful of those who have worked hard, and particularly my ancestors who have worked hard to make this country what it is, for me to enjoy the freedoms that I enjoy, for all of us to do that as Americans. There are things to applaud and be thankful for, but just don't get it twisted that we reign supreme in virtue. All right, let's continue. Even before the rise of big tech, Wall Street ignored China's serial theft of American intellectual property. It outright cheered the elimination of American manufacturing jobs. Learn to code, they would gloat. These were just the price of progress. Engagement was at every step Beijing's project, not America's. The Chinese Communist Party dictated terms only to break them whenever it suited them. They stole our technology, spied on our people, and threatened our allies, all with trillions of dollars of wealth and military power financed by their access to our market. Then came the rise of big tech, which is now less a contributor to the US economy than it is a tool of China's government. Excuse me. In exchange for cheap labor and regulatory special treatment for Beijing, America's largest technology firms funnel data about Americans to the CCP. They hand over sensitive intellectual property with military and intelligence applications to keep the money rolling in. They let Beijing censor Chinese users on their platforms. They let the CCP set their corporate policies about mobile apps, and they run interference for our rivals' political parties in Washington. One side of big tech companies' business model is old fashioned American competitiveness and world changing technological innovation. But increasingly, the side of these businesses is overshadowed by their role as operatives in the lucrative employ of America's most dangerous international enemy. If you want to understand the danger posed by collaboration between big tech and the CCP, look no further than TikTok. And we all know what's been going on with TikTok and how that's been a bipartisan issue, actually, in this country. The highly addictive video app used by 80 million Americans every month and overwhelmingly popular among teenage girls is in effect a tool of Chinese espionage. The ties between the TikTok and the Chinese government are not loose, and they are not coincidental. The same can be observed by many US colleges and universities through the CCP's Confucius Institutes. Beijing has been just as successful at compromising and co-opting our higher education system as they have at compromising and co-opting corporate America. All right, that's a stretch. A casual reader might take the last few pages as surveying a broad array of challenges facing the American people and the next conservative president: supranational policymaking, border security, globalization, engagement with China, manufacturing, big tech, and Beijing compromise colleges. But these really are not many issues, but two. One, that China is a excuse me, totalitarian enemy of the United States, not a strategic partner or a fair competitor. And two, that America's elites have betrayed the American people. The solution to all of the above problems is not to tinker with this or that government program, to replace this or that bureaucrat. These are problems not of the technocratic efficiency, but of national sovereignty and constitutional governance. We saw them not by trimming and reshaping the leaves, but by ripping out the trees, root and branch. International organizations and agreements that erode our constitution, rule of law, our popular sovereignty should not be reformed. They should be abandoned. Illegal immigrants should be ended, not mitigated. The border sealed, not reprioritized. Economic engagement with China should be ended, no rethought. Our manufacturing and industrial base should be restored, not allowed to deteriorate further. Confucius Institutes, TikTok, and any other arm of Chinese propaganda and espionage should be outlawed, not merely monitored. Universities taking money from the CCP should lose their accreditation, charters, and eligibility for federal funds. The next conservative president should go beyond merely defending America's energy interests, but go on the offense, asserting them around the world. America's vast reserves of oil and natural gas are not an environmental problem. They are the lifeblood of economic growth. American dominance of the global energy market would be a good thing for the world, and more importantly, for we the people. It's not just about jobs, even though unleashing domestic energy production would create millions of them. It's not just about higher wages for workers who didn't go to college, though they would receive the raises they have missed out on for 2 generations. Full spectrum strategic energy dominance will facilitate the reinvigoration of America's entire industrial and manufacturing sector as we disentangle our economy from China. Globally, it will rebalance power away from dangerous regimes in Russia and the Middle East. It will build powerful alliances with fast growing nations in Africa. Please leave Africa alone. Haven't you done enough? Please leave Africa alone. And provide us the leverage to counter Chinese ambitions in South America and the Pacific. Locally, it would draw billions of dollars of private investment to the communities that have been harmed by globalization since the 1990s. And it will clarify our intentions to Beijing that the next president can ensure that a large part of America reindustrialization is in the production of the equipment we will need to dissuade future foreign meddling with U.S. virtual interests. This is this whole thing that wraps up number 3. This whole idea of pulling back from the world, out of the world, pulling out of these organizations where we are connected, um, because it's serving everyone else and not us. I'm not the most Learned man. I don't know all the things. I don't know all the ins and outs about international relations. That's an area very weak on. Like I just know some bare minimum basics. But just looking at it, just logically, we are in a globalized world, and it's like, how do you get around that? It is what it is, kind of right now. Now, I say there are ways. I'm sure there are standards and ways. People much smarter than me can and do with craft and the way trade and all these things work. Um, but everybody's gonna be trying to get the better end. It's not like countries wherever are not trying to look out for themselves and better themselves. So negotiations are just going to be that. Like it's going to be a give and take, going all kind of ways. But I don't understand how pulling away is going to benefit people. How is that going to increase wages? How is that going to create more jobs? It's the assumption that we have the education level of all citizens here to do the tasks that are needed. There's a reason we outsource. There is a lot of times it's not always just about getting over, but sometimes it's about like who is capable of doing certain projects. Like, I don't know, the way that you already go after education, who's going to be learning and studying? Because y'all are trying to get rid of like all these colleges and universities. Like, what are we replacing it with? All y'all want to talk about is government and the Bible and all these things. I don't understand. I'm just really confused at the big picture and what this looks like for an America in the future that kind of says globalization, no, we shouldn't do anything. But then you talk about working with Africa, like that looks a little bit dicey with me, like you're trying to slide in there and take more and more resources, which I'm sure that you are. Um I don't know. This whole thing, it's a lot to seek in, but it gives you an idea of their global perspective and how they review the world. And talking about closing off borders, filling them, the whole illegal immigration thing, the whole immigration thing, it just makes it makes my ass itch, y'all. The way that we deal with this in this country and the way that we continue to talk about this and the talking points that go through with it. I know stuff has to be done and there are ways to tighten up. But I just wish there was like a lot more care and heart and truth telling and more actual working together when solutions are there than trying to make political points when it comes to immigration. And not letting something that happens with some immigrants that are bad or dangerous or crime dictate all immigrants or all immigrants of a certain demographic, because you certainly don't come for all immigrants. There are definitely immigrants who you don't mind coming into the country. And I think that goes without saying. Well, that is part three. All we have left is part four. Um, which is really quick. So I'm gonna actually just go ahead and read through part four now. And we have three and four, and you got the first four principles here that they want to do. Number four, promise number four, secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. What the hell does this mean? Let's find out together, y'all. Secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. I'm thinking about Scandal. What was the president? The one that got that she was running for president, but she was on like the news show. I cannot remember her name right now, but I just hear her saying liberty right now, the blessings of liberty, and it's kind of tripping me out. But anyway, let's get it. The Declaration of Independence famously asserted the belief of America's founders that all men are created equal. Yeah, they really believe that, right? While they allowed millions to be enslaved. But anyway, and endowed with God given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm glad they wrote that down, though. They ain't know what it is writing it down because they didn't consider us men, at that point. So but I'm glad it's written there in paper in ink. It's the pursuit of happiness that is central to America's heroic experiment in self-government. Not y'all saying experiment, because whenever Obama called America an experiment on Twitter last week, y'all about had a hissy fit with him using that word. But anyway, when the founders spoke of pursuit of happiness, what they meant might be understood today as an essence, pursuit of blessedness. All right. I'm feeling blessedness. What's the show? Handsmaid Tale vibes coming up. But anyway, that is, an individual must be free to live as his creator ordained, to flourish. Our Constitution grants each of us the liberty to do not what we want, but what we ought. This pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, and children. Thanksgiving dinners and the like. Bye. This is probably this. Okay. Anyway, guess if you don't have any of these, then you're messing up your life. Many find happiness through their work. It's so funny they put Thanksgiving dinners down there. That's hilarious. Many find happiness through their work. Think of dedicated teachers or healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs or plumbers, throwing themselves into their business. Anyone who sees a job well done as a personal reward. Religious devotion and spirituality are the greatest source of happiness around the world. And some of the greatest causes of unhappiness around the world, you can say too. Still, others find themselves happiest in their local voluntary communities of friends, their neighbors, their civic or charitable work. The American Republic was founded on principles prioritizing and maximizing individual rights to live their best life or to enjoy what the framers call the blessings of liberty. It's the radical equality, liberty for all, not just of rights, but of authority that the rich and powerful have hated about democracy in America since 1776. They resent Americans' audacity. They resent America's audacity and insisting that we don't need them to tell us how to live. Is this inalienable right of self direction of each person's opportunity to direct himself or herself and his or her community to the good that the ruling class disdains? With the Declaration and the Constitution, our nation's founders handed to us the means with which to preserve this right. Abraham Lincoln wrote of the Declaration as an apple of gold in a silver frame, the Constitution. So must the next conservative president look to these documents when the elites mount their next assault on liberty. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy and colonialism, just as we rejected slavery, second class citizenship for women, uh, mercantilism, socialism, Wilsonian globalism, fascism, communism, and today wokeism. To the left, these assertions of patriotic self assurance are just so many signs of our moral depravity and intellectual inferiority, proof that in fact we need a ruling elite making decisions for us. But the next conservative president should be proud, not ashamed of Americans' unique culture of social equality and ordered liberty. After all, the countries where Marxist elites have won political and economic power are all weaker, poorer, and less free for it. The United States remains the most innovative and upwardly mobile society in the world. Government should not Government should stop trying to substitute its own preferences for those of the people. And the next conservative president should champion the dynamic genius of free enterprise against the grim miseries of elite directed socialism. The promise of socialism, communism, Marxism, progressivism, fascism, whatever name it chooses, is simple. Government control of the economy can ensure equal outcomes for all people. The problem is that it has never done so. The problem is it has never done so. There's no such thing as the government. They're just people who work for the government, and wield its power, and who at almost every opportunity wield it to serve themselves first and everyone else a distant second. This is not a felon of one nation or socialist party, but inherent in human nature. Nighttime satellite images of the Korean Peninsula famously show that the free market South, lit up with homes, business, and cities electrified from coast to coast. By contrast, communist North Korea is almost completely dark, except for the small dot of the capital city, where psychotic dictator and his cronies live. The same phenomenon is on display in the infuriating fact that four of the six richest counties in the United States are suburbs of Washington, D.C., a city infamous for its lack of native productive industries. We see the same corruption expressed on an individual level whenever billionaire climate activists who want to outlaw carbon fuel transportation fly to A-list conferences on their private jets, or when COVID 19 shut down politicians like former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and California Governor Gavin Newsom were caught at their hair salon or dining at fancy restaurants after moralizing about how everyone else must stay home and forego such luxuries during the pandemic. For socialists, we who are almost always well-to-do, socialism is not a means of equalizing outcomes, but a means of accumulating power. They never get around to helping anyone else. The Soviet Empire was a social and economic failure. North Korea, despite the opulence of its tyrants, is one of the poorest nations in the world. Cuba is so corrupt that its people regularly risk their lives to escape to Florida on rafts. Venezuela was once the richest nation in South America. Today, a decade after Marxist dictator took over, 94% of Venezuelans live in poverty. Even Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders' home state of Vermont was forced to repeal the state's single payer healthcare system just 3 years after creating it. In every case, socialist elites promised that if only they could direct the economy, everything would be better. Very quickly, everything got worse. In socialist nation after socialist nation, the only way that the government could keep this disgruntled people in line was to surveil and terrorize them. By contrast, in countries with a high degree of economic freedom, elites are not in charge because everyone is in charge. People work, build, invest, save, and create according to their own interests and in service to the common good of their fellow citizens. There's a reason why the private economy hews to the maxim: the customer is always right. While government bureaucracies are notoriously user unfriendly, just as there is a reason why private charities are cheerful and government welfare systems are not, it is not because grocery store clerks and PTA moms are good and federal bureaucrats are bad. It's because private enterprises, for profit or nonprofit, must cooperate to give to succeed. So, as the American people take back their sovereignty, constitutional authority, respect for their families and communities, they should also take back their right to pursue the good life. The next president should promote pro growth economic policies that spur new jobs and investment, higher wages and productivity. Yes, that agenda should include overdue tax and regulatory reform, but it should go further and include antitrust enforcement against corporate monopolies. It should promote educational opportunities outside the woke dominated system of public schools and universities, including trade schools and apprenticeship programs and student loan alternatives that fund students' dreams instead of Marxist academics. I, right here at the end, and what's so blowing my mind and it's about to make me go crazy. I just know, just even in North Carolina, in areas where Republicans are in control, you take away from education all the time. And some of these things I'm with, yeah, let's get more trade schools, apprenticeship programs, do all this stuff. Let's invest in education a lot more. But the idea you're saying for ways outside of public schools and universities, you really mean let's defund those things pretty much totally and put in all these other things, which is just weird. Or these school choice and these charter schools and all these other things, instead of working in what we have. If we invest in what's already here, we can do this. And this idea that the left are socialists, and all these principles of socialism and leading us towards this is, I think it's just a warped sense of the way people think people live in this country, that I don't know. The principles we have right now, they ain't working. I'll just say that. Maybe a little more socialism won't hurt. Okay, you heard that here first. Because I'm just saying, you preach against all this stuff that we don't do or haven't been done, and talk about the horrors of it, and as if it's being enacted. It's just blowing my mind. But just as important as expanding opportunities for workers and small businesses, the next president should crack down on the crony capitalist corruption that enables America's largest corporations to profit through political influence rather than competitive enterprise and customer satisfaction. Well, okay, we we agree on cracking down on stuff, but anytime we try to go after corporations or the big wigs, y'all fight against it. I'm really confused. The tax breaks are always for the wealthy with a conservative president. I I don't understand. Analogous pro-growth reforms, our reforms for America's voluntary civil society are also in order. America is not an economy; it is a country. Economic freedom is not the only important freedom. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the freedom to assemble to represent key components of the American promise. Yeah, y'all really don't believe in freedom of religion. You want everything to be Christian. Today, in addition to the problem of big tech censorship, we see speakers at universities shot it down, parents investigated and arrested for attempting to speak at a school board meeting, and donors to conservative causes harassed and intimidated. The next conservative president must defend our First Amendment rights. And we go more whining from the conservatives because y'all are definitely so disrespected. Last little summary here. It's called best effort. Ultimately, the left does not believe that all men are created equal. They think they are special. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to the pursue the good life. They think only they themselves have such a right, along with a moral responsibility to make decisions for everyone else. No, that's why you all up in women's private parts and telling them when they can and can't have abortions. Yeah, that's totally the left doing that. You all up in their reproductive rights. You're all up in to the poor, the homeless, and how much you can get from a state. You're all up in unemployment and SNAP and all these things. Okay. Yeah, that's the left. The left is trying to take away. This book, this agenda, the entire Project 2025 is a plan to unite the conservative movement and the American people against elite rule and the woke culture warriors. Our movement has not been united in recent years, and our country has paid the price. In the past decade, though, the breakdown of the family, the rise of China, the Great Awakening, big tech's abuses, and the erosion of constitutional accountability in Washington have rendered these divisions not just inconvenient, but politically suicidal. Every hour, the left directs federal policy and elite institutions over sovereignty. Our Constitution, our families, and our freedoms are a step closer to disappearing. Conservatives have just 2 years and one shot to get this right. With enemies at home and abroad, there's no margin for error. Time is running short. If we fail the fight for the very idea of America may be lost. But we should take this small window of opportunity we have left to act with the courage and confidence, not despair. The last time our nation and movement were so near defeat, we rallied together behind a great leader and great ideas, transcended our differences, rescued our nation, and changed the world. It's time to do it again. Now, as then, we know who we're fighting and what we're fighting for our republic, our freedom, and for each other. The next conservative president will enter office on January 20th, 2025, with a simple choice: greatness or failure. It would be a daunting test, but no more so than every generation of Americans has faced and passed. The conservative promise represents the best effort of the conservative movement in 2023 and the next conservative president's last opportunity to save our republic. Y'all, this is serious. So like even the what's his name? I think his name is, I want to say Kevin. Yeah, Kevin Roberts, who is the leader of this whole thing. He's been out talking, and I know y'all have heard the clips where he said, that basically this fight is going to remain bloodless as long as the left allows it. These people are willing to shed blood for this. We saw January 6th. I just want you to know, when we show up to the polls and we stop this nonsense from happening, it's not going to be the end. These people are serious. They see this as America's last shot. Somehow in 2024, going in 2025, this is America's last chance to be America, whatever that means. Whatever that means. So they're putting everything into these. These people are wacko that are left out here, and we have to deal with them. So, yeah, January 6th was one thing, but just be prepared. Once we do win this fight, there's going to be fighting left to do. And I hope it doesn't get ugly, that it doesn't turn bloody, but the threats is there, and a threat has been issued and made with this. But ultimately, I think conservatives are really weak punks anyway. Very weak. The main ones that be out here, like they talk all this noise, and they would do stuff. I'm not saying nobody won't do anything, but it's more of us, and we can easily shut them down. So don't give in, remain strong. Realize this platform is out here and it's crafted. They view everyone that's not with them as being on the left. You're a leftist. They put you all in one category. They already know what you think and believe and all these things and the horrors of it. And they're trying to fight against you. You and your principle, you and your own individual right. It's so funny. They read the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and how every individual has the right. But no, they don't want you to have that right. They want to make what they believe your beliefs. That's why you got to get out there and do it in the polls and show them what you want. That's where our talking is right now. Well, as promised, those are the 4 principles. You can go back and listen to the previous 2 principles. They're broken up where I did. They're both about 30 minutes a piece or so on those episodes, with each principle and a breakdown there. These were the final 2 that we did today. Thank you, Taraji, once again. And welcome back to the couch, y'all. Look forward to producing some good and fun content for you. Follow the YouTube page at The Parker's Couch. Follow the TikTok. I'm going to get back with posting some reels and some different stuff at The Parker's Couch. Follow me individually, CD Parker03 on Instagram, and Cameron Parker D on Twitter. And make sure you follow the podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the things on Podbean. All right. See you later, Tater Tots.